Okay, and I'm back. So, I know I'm a little late on this, but I finally got to, watch the whole show and stuff, so I finally get to break it down comfortably. So, let's get into it. I watched the Netflix Squid Game recently, and I have a few thoughts. So, it'll be half spoiler-free, but I'm also going to get into, the nitty-gritty of it a little bit. So, welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Okay, so every once in a while, Netflix does a show where people consider it a must-watch, right? Mostly it's crap. Just to be honest, Netflix mostly has crap. It's too much stuff. It just bombards you with a whole bunch of garbage. But every once in a while, like I said, this is a show that you're like, okay, this is a must-watch. This is one that I'm going to recommend to everybody. This is one that everybody has to watch. I want to talk about it with people. So I feel like Squid Game falls into that particular, categorization. Like, for example, off the top of my head, I'd say Daredevil falls into that. I think it's the first Netflix show that I'm like, that's a definite must-watch for anybody. That's a fantastic show all around. I'd say The Witcher falls in there. I thought The Witcher was fantastic. Even, Tiger King, just because of the insanity of Tiger King, you're like, you got to see how these people are, man. They're crazy. So every once in a while, like I said, a show will be created. It's high quality. And you're like, you gotta watch this. You tell your friends, you tell your family, like, you gotta watch this show. Now, this one is a particularly hard show to recommend because it's in Korean. And not everybody likes subtitles. So you have to find somebody, first off, who's interested in foreign cinema, and second, who doesn't mind reading subtitles. Now, unfortunately, my generation were kind of a bit, and the younger generations were used to, anime and stuff, and so reading subtitles is not really a big thing. But it's not for everybody. I mean, also, let's say, for example, in Mexico, most of the American films have subtitles, so you kind of get used to that as well. But whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a good show for anybody, I think. So let's before I get into it, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch, live streaming every day, except Thursdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to be doing a live stream live if you want to join me, be a part of the chat, send me comments there. It's the easiest way for you to contact me. And I'm also going to have the videos live on Rumble now, so you can check that out also at Super Dario World. If you want to send me something privately, you can always do that via Instagram at DarioSDW and at Super Dario World. That's the easiest way for you to contact me there. So let's get into the show, because I feel like there's some interesting stuff to talk about. So first off, overall, just, again, spoiler-free arena right here. Before we get into the actual spoilers and stuff, the show's great. It's basically, imagine if it's a modern day take on the Hunger Games. It's kind of like Parasites and the Hunger Games have had a baby. I believe that's the easiest way to describe it, and I think I heard somebody else describe it that way. So that would be the easiest way to describe it. Basically, a bunch of poor people agree to participate in a game to the death where they could win a lot of money. Easiest way to describe it. So it's very well made. It's beautifully shot. Honestly, it's one of the most beautifully shot shows I've seen on Netflix. Like, the amount of money that's on screen, it's insane. Like, every single set that was built, and some of them for no reason. Like, there's a set that's basically when they move from their holding cells basically to the game arenas. They go through a set where it's kind of like have you ever seen the painting where you're not sure if you're looking up or looking down? It's just a bunch of stairs going in different directions. You could go going up, down, left, right. They built a set that's just like that, and I have no idea why. But they wanted to build it, and they had the money, so they're like, fuck it, we're gonna build it and have it on screen. So it was an interesting take, but yeah, beautifully shot, beautifully. The costumes are great, the colors are great, and acting is an interesting thing to say if it's good or bad when you're talking about foreign actors, because you're not 100% sure if they're actually doing a good job, because again, you don't really speak the language naturally. You don't understand if they do it naturally, but it's believable if you're a foreigner. I mean, I thought they did a really, really great job, all of them. I liked every single character, or I hated the characters that I had to hate. And it's the story is good. It takes risks. It doesn't pull any punches when it has to, and which is honestly to me the most important part of writing. If you're going to write a show like this, you can't pull any punches. You can't fall in love with any of the characters. Everybody has to be on the table, and they do that for the most part. It's filled with surprises left and right. The ending I particularly enjoyed. It leaves it well, I guess. No, I'll save it for the potential spoiler arena because it revolves around the end. It's set up in a way that's very clear. You understand the setting, you understand the world, you understand how things are working there. It doesn't hold your hand specifically. You're kind of confused as the audience for a really long time, but the main characters are confused as well. So you're like, okay, it's okay for me to be confused because they're confused as well. I don't have more information than they do for the most part, and it's mostly It's a very well made show. So again, I highly recommend it. I don't want to get into spoilers of it. I don't want to ruin anything for you. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time. I started one episode and I was like, okay, I'll just watch one and then I'll do something else and then I'll do another one the next day. I couldn't stop because it's really good, really well made, high quality, and the story, which is the most important thing, the story is very good. Again, doesn't pull any punches. Everybody's at risk. And it's a mystery that you're trying to solve, and you're hoping for some characters to survive, and you're hoping for some characters to get theirs because fuck them. And it's very well handled. It's filled with surprises, which are you want to know what the games are because you're like, how are they going to make a kids game deadly now? It's again very well made. Highly recommend it. Good show. But with that out of the way, let's get into, the spoiler arena. So again, we're going to go into spoilers. I'm going to go into a little bit more specific. I'm not going to ruin the story for you, but spoilers on ahead. Warning, 3, 2, 1. So the story in a nutshell. We're following there's two big storylines going on in the game. One has to do with the characters inside the game, and the second storyline is a police officer that's kind of investigating the game. Now, his storyline kind of doesn't really go anywhere, and it's very confusing. The show, supposedly, according to IMDb, is a miniseries, and a miniseries means that it's done. It's a one and done. There's not going to be another season. However, it ends in a way where there could be a second season. I would think that they're going to make a second season just because of money. The show was so successful that they have to do this again. How it will work, I don't know, because they didn't leave you know what? They did leave stuff interesting enough so that to continue. But speaking specifically of the cop, because I want to get the storyline out of the way. His storyline was kind of, in a way, unnecessary. It helped to see how things worked, behind the scenes, for all the creators of the game and how everything got handled. But at the same time, it's like, well, this didn't really go anywhere except to introduce maybe the villain. But the villain, if it's a miniseries, it's done. I don't understand. What were you trying to do? Were you trying to add suspense with that character? I could understand that. That makes a little bit of sense. And it was fun. It was a fun thing to add there. But again, I didn't see that storyline actually going anywhere, which was annoying because I like if it's a miniseries, I like stories that go somewhere. If they do a second season, they're gonna have to pick up his storyline specifically, in a way, or the things that were set up by his storyline. But I don't. Again, there was a weird organ harvesting side story that I don't really understand. It looked creepy as fuck. But what did that have to do with anything? I have no idea. Honestly, I don't understand. There's a lot of logistics here that really bothered me. For example, how much money did this fucking game cost? I kept thinking about it. How much money does this cost? And I don't mean making the show. I mean, if this actually worked. So let's say first off, all right. Wait. Let me give you a short version of the show so that you can kind of follow along if you haven't seen the show. So it's a story about a guy who is a lovable loser. He's down on his luck. He owes a buttload of money to the banks and to some really bad people. He's also kind of about to lose his daughter, and he lives with his mom. and his ex-wife hates him. So they're moving to America, and he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna see my daughter again, but I'm a loser and I'm a gambler and blah blah blah. So he's in a way a lovable loser, but mostly just like a loser. And actually at the beginning, you don't really like him because he's like a total loser who's, you know, stealing from his mom. But whatever, you know, there's a redemption story in there. So whatever. That guy, he gets invited to be he's in desperate straits. The mob, you know, they want their money back, and they're gonna take it back any way they can, even if it means, you know, chopping up parts of him. And so he's like, I gotta make some money fast. And so at this exact moment, he gets an invitation by somebody, a random stranger, basically to play a game. And in this game, if he loses, he will get slapped, and if he wins, he'll make a lot of money. So he gets his ass kicked, and, you know, well, he gets slapped to oblivion, but he makes a lot of money. And he gets the invitation to be a part of another game. And he accepts, and he kind of gets kidnapped, and then he gets into the Squid Game. Basically, he gets taken to an island with hundreds of other people, and they soon realize that all these kids games that they're going to be playing, well, they're deadly. And if you survive all 6 games, you will walk out with a lot of money. So a lot of stuff happens in between, but that's basically the gist of the story. Okay, so I have a lot of issues with the logistics of the whole thing. And you know me, I'm weird like that. I'm always thinking about the stupid things that you shouldn't be thinking about. But all right, I'll just, I'll break it down so that you guys can see the way that I think. So, or my way of thinking. Well, I'm trying to figure stuff out. So, the big prize here at this game was like 43 billion kwon. I said kwon. I don't know. South Korean dollars. I always forget. Let me just double check what they're called, which is weird. I've actually been to South Korea. I don't remember the name of their money. So South Korean money. What's it called? Won. I'm sorry. I was close. Won. South Korean won. So the grand prize is 43 billion, which basically one won is the equivalent of $1. So the grand prize is $43 million. If it's easier for you to follow that. So I'm just going to use dollars from now on because it's easier. So again, $43 million is the grand prize for everybody who survives this particular, adventure. And I just kept thinking, like, man, $43 million, that's a lot of money. And where did they get it? It kept bugging me because this thing did not cost them $43 million. First off, the thing took place in an island. And then afterwards, you see how they get there. So they had a bunch of vans pick up a whole bunch of people. They had to purchase, like knockout gas. They had to pay the drivers, and the people who work there. Some of them are willing to kill, so they're probably mercenaries. So you probably have to first off, you have to pay them a lot of money to be willing to kill people. Second, you have to pay the other people a lot of money for them not to say shit, or unless you're planning on killing on them. So salaries are a lot of money. Again, you need a boat. You need fuel for the boat. You need to feed all these people, and the food that they give them, sometimes it's really good. So you need a chef there, because also you have VIPs, and the VIPs, they get all the high end stuff, so you need to pay for that. Again, all the salaries for all the people who are working there for them to keep it hush hush. The building of the arenas, the games, the bullets, all this stuff. I'm just like, man, how much money would this actually cost in real life, and is it even worth it? Like, how much? At the end, the big issue that I had with this is that at the end of the game, at the end of the day, this whole thing is basically, just like a big gambling thing. It's for gamblers, and people are gambling on their lives. But I'm like, damn, how could that work? Like, you need people betting millions of dollars, and I mean millions and millions of dollars, and losing, which is the harder part. And well, I guess it's easier. I mean, if you're betting on 1 of 600, I mean that I guess that makes it a little bit easier. But you have to make so much, man, and also to keep it secret. And how humans suck with secrets. It's terrible. So I just kept thinking about the logistics of it, and I'm like, man, I don't see how this could work. Obviously, I don't think. If you're telling me that there's some Hunger Games style games out there, some, like freaking South Africa, somebody's just doing that for fun, or somewhere in Asia, they're just doing that for fun, I totally believe it. But on this scale, that nice, I'm like, no, it just doesn't make any, logistically, it does not make any sense, but whatever. Again, it's one of those stupid things that have nothing to do with the show that I like to think about, and I like to see like how plausible all this is. It could be, I just, it wouldn't look as nice. Anyway, whatever. That really doesn't matter at all. Again, it's just one of my weird things. Let's go back to the show. So the show, again, you're following the story is of three main characters, and here I believe they made a massive mistake within the show. Massive mistake, and they did in the beginning. In the beginning, again, you're following one guy. This guy, I forget his name. Let me just double check. Names are not my thing, by the way, and especially the Korean names. Ji-hoon. So Song Ji-hoon. That's the main character. You're following him pretty much the entire time. And I feel that was a massive mistake in the beginning of the show, because if that's the main character, that's kind of like who you think is going to make it at the end. And again, big mistake. From the beginning, I felt like you should have followed multiple characters. That way, it's at least a little bit of a mystery who's going to make it. And they actually do this later on in the show. There's an episode where they go back to reality, and they're like, well, man, okay, they have an option to leave the game. And so they leave the game, and they're like, because they're like, fuck this, but they don't get any money. And then you realize that, well, their life sucks, and they have nothing going for them, and so they actually need to go back in order to make the money, whatever. That episode, you actually get to see their real lives and how much they suck and how desperate they are for everybody. All the random characters that you just met that you don't know what they're doing or what the hell. And it's one of those things that you're like, this would have been way better in the beginning. Because from the beginning, you don't really know who you're rooting for, You'd be like, it could be this guy, it could be that guy. Ooh, that guy's really desperate. Oh, it could be. Oh, and they're kind of their stories. They kind of intersect. So, ooh, this girl, her brother, North Korea. So, again, it would have been a lot more of a mystery who the main character is, who the winner would be. And again, there was the big flaw of this show, that it was very, let's say, it was highly likely that you knew who was going to win. I was rooting for somebody else, but whatever. It's again, kind of a mistake. Personally, I thought that was kind of a mistake. I would have handled that a little bit differently. Other than that, it's fine. Then it's again, the show has a lot of twists and turns, and it's very surprising. And it's meant to be surprising because, again, you're supposed to be feeling what the characters are feeling, and they're mostly scared and confused most of the time. And there's a lot of things where you're like, that was a strategic mistake. That's a strategic mistake. And actually, I was talking to somebody that it's kind of in the vein of let's say, hiding who the winner would be from the beginning. But I was talking with a friend of mine at work, and she's not done with the game yet, with the show yet. And she was right at the episode where they're about to do the tug of war game. And she's right in the and that episode ends kind of like in a cliffhanger, right? Like it ends right before it starts. She's like, oh well, but I kind of already know who's gonna win, because I mean it's fine. You can do the splits because I kind of know who's already gonna win because I've seen the memes and stuff, so I kind of already know, and I know who survives that one. And I'm like, yeah, the team with all the main characters or the team with all the random nobodies that we haven't seen. I wonder which team's gonna win. So again, it's those little mistakes that if they had somebody on the other team that you'd been following, you're like, okay, so there's a little bit of a consequence here. There's a little bit of risk. And they could have done it. They could have just introduced a few more characters. It would have been a little bit confusing, but characters that you're just gonna kill off, again, just to hide a little, just to add a little bit more tension. And it was already a very tense situation, but it could have been more. I don't know, make it a little bit more fun. There's also the big surprise at the end that I felt was, in a way, very well handled, because there's a lot of hints at who the true bad guy is. And again, this would be a massive spoiler, but 3, 2, 1, massive spoiler alert. The big bad, the person who turns out to be the head of this whole thing, is the old guy who we follow throughout the entire game, like the old guy who's the friend of the main character, whose name I just said and whose name I do not remember. Song Ji-hoon. No, Park is the other guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Song Ji-hoon. Anyway, so the old guy turns out to be, like the guy who organized the whole thing, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. It's actually, if you think about it, there's a few hints to this. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that if you're a film guy, you kind of figure it out rather quickly. But at the same time, you're like, man, it was hidden well enough that I wasn't particularly sure. And the reason why I say that there's a few hints towards it, and like there's a moment when they're playing the red light green light game where he actually kind of moves a little, and they don't detect it. But you're one of the it's one of those things that you're like, oh well, it's because computer malfunction, or it's one of those things where a character's supposed to be dead, but you can see them breathing and stuff like that. So maybe it's one of those things. There's also a moment where the biggest moment probably that's a hint for anybody is when the fight breaks out and the old man's just not there. And all of a sudden he just pops up somewhere else where it was safe, right? And he calms everybody down, and that's when the fight stops. So that's like a big hint number 2. Then big hint number 3 would probably be the moment where he dies off screen. So it's one of those things where you're like, interesting. They try to hide it really well, particularly let's say the tug of war game, because he could have lost and he could have died, and I don't know how they could have rigged that particular game, but whatever. And so again, it was well done, it was well handled. If you kind of know a little bit, which sucks, but still it's managed to be fun. But I did not understand his motivations. There's a point where money so much where you get bored, and so we create a game where people are gonna go kill each other. Just go hunting, play some video games, bro. How? I think they should have, if they played up a little bit more of him being kind of a psychopath or a sociopath, that would have been a little bit better. But the whole, I'm just bored, I have money and I'm bored, is like, all right, listen, I can kind of get it, because people have like a really bad look at people. Like, they don't really like people with money, and they see them like, oh yeah, they're evil, like cartoon villains, whatnot. But they needed to add something else, a little something extra to it, where he, I don't know, actually enjoyed the killing part, or the whole sociopathic part of it. I feel like that was just lacking in the villain, because it's a little bit of it's one of those things where you're like, well, he just did it because he was bored, really? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do if you're bored. Like, it's a lot. Like, again, this took a lot of money and put a lot of things at risk. Like his freedom. Like, imagine all of his family's money. He put a lot of stuff at risk. And there's a lot of people putting a lot of stuff at risk for making I don't know how much money. And if they're just doing it for fun, I don't get it. Because what? All right. Here's the issue. If you're bored with money, if you have so much money that you're bored, gambling with that money would not give you the excitement that you need. So the thing that you're enjoying is seeing the people kill themselves. So you're enjoying the game, right? But then you're participating in the game, which again, it's one of those things where you're like, well, why don't you just do something else? Like, you could do something else, whatever, it doesn't matter. Unless you actually enjoy the killing part, you actually enjoy, watching people die. If that would have been made clearer, I feel like it would have been better. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like the big reveal, it's the big surprise, and what I liked about the whole thing is that the main character has a redemption arc, and they try to break him several times, and I think this is the definition of like the bend but don't break for main character. And by the way, I'm sorry if you hear that, but neighbors turned on a freaking car behind me, and it's one of those things that has like a V8 or whatever. It doesn't matter. All right, so the main character has a very interesting redemption arc, because they try to break him several times, and he again, it's the definition of bend but don't break, which to me, it's great for a finale. I was very confused heading up to the end of this. First off, I don't see the point of a Squid Game, and I mean the kids game, because in the beginning the show begins and they're trying to explain to you what a Squid Game is, and when you're looking at it, you're just like, I don't understand this. I don't understand how this game works. I don't understand what's the point of it. You hop in one line, and then you run across something, and then you're trying to hit a circle. Okay. I mean, I didn't understand the game, or I didn't understand why it was difficult. It seems to me like if you're defense, you win automatically, because you're fighting against somebody who's hopping on one foot at the beginning, so all you got to do is make sure they don't reach a particular line. Right? Anyway, doesn't matter. So the game at the end was set up. It was a great setup. It was a great build up. And again, the ending I thought was handled extremely well, because you have the three main characters. Again, this is spoiler arena, but you have the three main characters here who are who are the only survivors, and you're like, this is great. It's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's going to be a three-way fight that you're not exactly sure who you're rooting for or how this is going to work, but somebody's going to have to betray somebody, and it's going to be interesting to watch. And unfortunately, that kind of got ruined beforehand, but they did it in such a way that I just thought was fantastic. So there's the scene after the dinner where the main characters try to, you know, console the girl because the girl's dying, whatever, and he considers killing the other guy, but the girl stops him. Again, that's a moment where they're okay. The main character broke. They broke his brain. He's ready to commit murder, but the girl saves him. So it's a bend but didn't completely break type of moment. That's followed up with how you figure out that she's dead is fantastic. Honestly, it's one of my favorite moments in the entire show because he's just knocking on the door like, come here, save her. And then they open and you're like, oh shit, they're actually gonna help her. And they walk in with the coffin and you're like, oh no. Then you turn around and the other guy's there and you're like, oh no. So again, really well handled, extremely well handled. I was a bit confused by him by the villain not stabbing him, you know, because the guy runs to the girl and he's, you know, got his back towards him, and that it's a particular pet peeve of mine where I'm like, don't give your back to the man with the knife, you deserve to get stabbed. And so, but the other guy's not doing anything and he gets stopped at the end. So you're like, okay, so even if he would have tried something, the guys would have stopped it because they need a finale. Anyway, it's one of those things that just particular pet peeve, but whatever. So that's the moment where the guy again, now, all right, so he truly broke. So he was considering killing you before. Now he's really considering killing you again. You broke the main character. After that, it's a setup of the Squid Game. And here's the moment where I'm like, huh. So this clearly had to be a 1-on-1 thing or 2-on-2 thing, but what would have happened if the girl survived? You know? Like if the girl would have actually made it to the Squid Game, how would they have handled that? I mean, supposedly they had 3 players left. Would have been 2 against 1. That's not fair. They should have kept somebody else alive. That could have been a little bit more fun. And then, you know, it would have been them going to get at each other in the Squid Game. I don't know. So to me, I felt that could have been a little bit more exciting, you know, a little bit more fun. But it's one of those things where you're like, oh man, what can you do? Like all right, okay, so I got here, Sir Slayton, the glass guy. All right, imagine if the glass guy would have survived, right? Just the glass guy, it's the guy who could see, you know, like, all right, this is tempered glass, this isn't, blah, blah, blah. And you have to choose, all right? You have to make teams of 2. Teams of 2 for the Squid Game. Who are you going to do? Is it going to be, you got some drama here. Is the main character, is he going to pick the girl? Is he going to pick the glass guy? Is he going to pick his old-time friend? Because remember, at this point, he would not hate the old-time friend because he didn't kill the glass guy. So who is it going to pick? And then whatever team picks, then it's like, all right, now you compete against each other. So it's one of those things where you're like, man, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it could have been fun. Imagine a situation where it's okay, the guy and the girl, the main character and the girl against the friend and the glass guy. So those are, or even better, like the Iraqi dude that he betrayed. So it's 2 against 2. The guy and the girl managed to win. You're like, oh yes, all right, they got it. They're going to survive. And then it turns out that it has to be, now it's them against each other. And you're like, fuck. Oh man, that's brutal. So again, it could have been a little bit more brutal, but whatever. They had to do the thing in the 6th episode, which is the game where they're betting, what is it, the balls. In Spanish, it's called canicas, marbles. They were the betting marble games, which was a fantastic episode also. Really fantastic, really brutal. And so, thank you, Marbles, for Slayton. So it's one of those things that you're like, it's fantastic, fantastically handled because you kind of know who's gonna make it in each game, but it's how do you get there, and how do you get there is all that matters. And again, it's one of those moments where the main character breaks. And all right, so the glass guy, the friend, you know that he's a total asshole and he's going to do like something shady because he's a total piece of shit. The girl, you kind of know how it's gonna go just because, you know, the other girl seems kind of like not into it at all. She's kind of like, actually she kind of looks like she wants to die in a way. And And the main character, you're like, man, you're cheating an old guy, but is the old guy cheating for you? I don't know. It's really well handled. And you're like, how much of a piece of shit can you be? You're supposed to be a redemption arc, but you're being a piece of shit. Whatever. Doesn't matter. And so it's handled really well. And you get to the final fight, and it's him against the old friend, and he wants to kill the old friend. He doesn't really particularly care about winning more than he cares about killing the guy. And he could have actually won pretty easily. Like once he threw the dirt in the guy's eyes, he could have just run to the end and won. But no, he didn't want to win that way. He wanted to kill the guy. Even though he knew that winning would probably mean the death of the other guy, he's like, no, fuck it. I'm gonna whoop his ass. And so that leads to a great fight. Again, it very, you know what, realistic fight, between a dude who, you know, is trying to survive and he wants to kill somebody, but he doesn't really know how. Between two dudes who don't really know what they're doing fight wise, and so it's very realistic that way, and it's really brutal. But honestly, people who don't know how to fight tend to be more brutal, and sometimes it's a problem, especially when they're fighting for their lives. And it's great that it was handled that way, and there's the whole fight, and he wins, and he has the opportunity to kill the guy, but he doesn't. And so he's like, all right, fine, you know what? I'm not getting my hands dirty. And he walks away, and he's going to go do the tap. And so again, he changes his mind. He had the opportunity to win very easily, very clean, but he was like, no, I want to kill him. And when he has the opportunity to kill him, he's like, no, this is not who I am. But I'll just go there, tap my foot, and you know, it's not in my hands anymore. I didn't kill him. And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, it's really interesting how they're doing this, because does it wash your hands of the whole thing morally, blah blah blah. And he's going to do that. Again, he's broken. He's broken at this point. But he decides, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to give everything up for my friend. For just so that I don't want this death in my hands. I'm not going to do with it. I'm not going to go through it. I'm not going to play their silly little game. I am going to give everything up so that my friend can survive. So that I don't have to look his mom in the eye and be like, oh, she died because of me. Or he died because of me. And so that's the moment where you see the main character. They didn't break him. They tried extremely hard, but he did not break. He bent hard. He was like, started like this, and he went all the way like this, but he managed to get back there. He remembered who he was. He's still, you know, the lovable loser who cares more about people than money. And well, at least at this point, he realized that people are more important than money. And that's when, again, another slight mistake on the show, because we knew that the other guy was kind of suicidal already. He was like ready to end it. And he was like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just die. And he kills himself. And that's the way that the other guy wins. And it was kind of a cop out writing wise, but whatever. We get to see it, and you're like, wow, that's all right. So the game masters did not manage to break this dude. Following that, the dude's mom's dead. So it's, what did I fucking do this for? And that kind of breaks him in a way. Again, very well handled. It's kind of like a roller coaster of emotions, and particularly the storyline of the main character, because it's like bending, no, didn't break. Bending, no, didn't break. And you feel for the guy at the end. You kind of understand why he goes a little bit crazy, and how he kind of like cleans himself up. Again, very, very, very well handled. Good stuff. Just let me see, Sir Slayton. I just didn't like how he got defeated with a bite to his ankle. It wasn't just like a bite to his ankle. He ripped out like, I think, like a tendon or something. It's not an easy thing to go through. It's, you know, it's funny. A knife can go in, clean out. It would suck. It would hurt a lot, but it's a clean in, a clean out. Bite, yeah, and rip off of a tendon, that takes off more than you think, and damages more than you think. And a human bite is actually pretty gnarly. Like supposedly you can bite off a finger with the same pressure that it would take to bite off a carrot. And so imagine that just in a different part of the body. That actually, like, it can rip out a muscle. And if you don't, there's a difference between cutting a muscle and ripping one off, or a tendon. So I can understand how they could let's say impair somebody. Also, it depends on what muscle or what tendon they tear. Like, for example, if they stab you like up in the thighs, you still have other muscles, and it's a big one, so it can probably take the hit. Close to the ankle, the tendons and all that stuff. So there's a little bit of damage can do a lot of damage. You know, it's all where you hit it. It's kind of like the Death Star. You know, it's all one good hit in the right spot could really fuck you up. And also, people have different pain thresholds. Imagine being bitten by somebody. That really, it affects your brain. You're like, you don't want to get near that person's mouth because they just ripped off a piece of muscle. And you're like, the other person's kind of a savage. So it's, again, I don't blame it. I don't blame it. I understand it. And I would not want to be bitten by somebody who is fighting for their lives. It seems kind of painful. But whatever. Point is, show, very well handled. A lot of fun. A lot of people are saying, like, this is a criticism of capitalism, and it's a criticism of this, and it's a criticism of that. And I'm like, I get it. It's funny why South Korean cinema is very interesting. They have a very bizarre sense of humor, and I'll never forget it. There's a movie called The Host, South Korean movie, and basically there's a giant monster, and they think that this giant monster is creating a bit of a disease. And there's a scene that I thought was hysterical in it, and I mean hysterical, laugh out loud, hysterical. So there's everybody who's scared that there's this virus going around, right? And the moment that they figure that out is it's raining, and there's a bunch of people at a bus stop, and somebody starts coughing. He's coughing the lung out, like, and that's at that moment. The news right across the street is saying there's a virus going around, and everybody should be careful, blah blah blah. So you're at this bus stop, a person's coughing a lung out, and everybody's just looking at this person, and they're like, oh, shit. And they're trying to, slink away from that person. The person takes off their mask, spits into the street, and tries to recover themselves. And then they turn around and sees that everybody, just walked away from him. Just give him a few feet of distance. And at that exact same moment, a car just drives by super fast, hits that puddle, splashes everybody. It's fucking hysterical. I didn't do it justice, obviously, because this is kind of a physical thing, whatever. But I was just laughing my ass off at the whole situation because it's super dark comedy. And this show has a lot of really dark comedy. And Parasite also has a bunch of really dark comedy. You know what's funny? I remember talking to people after Parasite, and they're like, oh yeah, these rich people are bad, and that's the message of the movie. And you're like, but the rich people didn't do anything. The villains of the movie are the poor people. They're the ones who did the wrong stuff. What you talking about? Here, it's different because the people who set up the situation, the truly evil situation, are the people with money. And and you're like, this is a criticism of this, criticism of that. And I'm like, oh man, I don't see it. To me, because, well, again, what we're following is kind of like the regime of this is what you do, and you have no other rights, you have no other choice, you have no other nothing. And what you see inside the camp is kind of like authoritarian and stuff like that. And what I thought really funny was that they have a North Korean girl there, and the North Korean girl is probably like, I used to live this every day. Whatever, this ain't that terrible, this ain't that bad. And she doesn't say it, but you could see it kind of like her, whatever, been through worse. So again, it's funny. I don't see the critique. I don't. But again, my mind doesn't work that way. My mind goes to thinking like, how would this work logistically? How would they pay for this? How could they hire these people? Where would they get them? It's stuff like that. I don't know. And let's see, Sir Slayton. Hey, just letting you know, I got the notification you were on 30 minutes after you started streaming. Really? Huh. Interesting. I don't know. I see my connection's fine. Well, whatever. It happens. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Maybe it's a Twitch thing on YouTube, because I do get on my phone the YouTube one, and it was on time. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Here's the point. Show's fun. Highly recommended. It's enjoyable. It has its funny moments. I'm not going to tell you which one of the moments I thought was funny, because you'll think I'm a psychopath. And so I don't need that anymore. I don't need that in my life. And that type of negativity. But it's fun, enjoyable, well made. It's the show for Netflix that I've seen in a year. You know what? Since The Witcher, it's probably the show that I'm like, that's a must watch. Or maybe when was Tiger King out? Which one was first? I don't know. But the point, it's been like a year since I've seen a Netflix show that I'm like, that's a must watch. So there you go. That's it. That's like the biggest compliment I could give it, and that's the biggest take overall. Must watch show. Yeah, that's it. So, as always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch, live streaming at 10 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, at least for the next few weeks, because then I'll be free. If you want to send me something privately, you can always do that on Instagram at Super Dario World and at DarioSDW. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.